It all started with a sound I'll never forget, metal cracking and a scream that felt like it could freeze time. I was just in the kitchen, pouring coffee, when I heard that thud. Without thinking, I dropped the mug and rushed outside. There, at the base of our porch stairs, was my 10-year-old son Eli, lying in his wheelchair, tilted sideways. One of the wheels was completely unhinged. The custom-built ramp we'd installed just 2 weeks ago, gone. Completely gone. All that was left were the twisted anchor bolts, bent and misshapen, like someone had ripped the entire structure out with brute force. That's when Cheryl, my neighbor, came running up. Her eyes were wide, and she was holding her phone. "You're not going to believe this, Maya," she said, her voice shaking. "Karen, she had her handyman rip out your ramp at 6 in the morning." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "What?" I could barely get the word out. "She said it violated the aesthetic values of the neighborhood," Cheryl continued. She laughed, told him to take it to the dump. My legs went cold, not from shock, but from rage. That ramp wasn't just some decoration. It was the only way Eli could get in and out of our home. Karen didn't care about safety. She didn't care about anything other than her idea of what the neighborhood should look like. And she just destroyed something my son needed to live his life. I felt the anger rising in my chest. She had no idea who she was messing with. She didn't know who I was or what I did for a living. But she was about to find out. You see, just a month ago, Eli and I had moved to Oak Creek Valley. This place was marketed as inclusive, accessible, and community-focused, exactly what we needed for Eli, who'd been in a wheelchair since a car accident when he was 6. We bought the house because it had wide sidewalks, gentle slopes perfect for mobility. The day we moved in, Karen, the HOA president, greeted us with a packet and a fake smile. She barely looked at Ella, didn't even acknowledge him. She just asked if we were planning to repaint the mailbox to match the community colors. I didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, I should have seen the red flag. Just a few days after we installed the ramp, I got the first of Karen's infamous pink violation notices. Unauthorized structure, it said in bold, red ink. I couldn't help but laugh. The ramp had been built by a licensed contractor, it met all the codes, and I had filed all the necessary paperwork with the city, even submitting a copy to the HOA office. It was all perfectly legal. So I wrote back politely, enclosing copies of the approvals and referencing the ADA Title II guidelines, thinking that would be the end of it. But with Karen, it never is. 3 days later, I saw her pacing in front of our house, arms crossed, whispering to 2 other board members. I waved. She didn't wave back. That evening, another violation notice. Non-conforming material use. Apparently, the beige color of the ramp wasn't allowed. The thing is, half the houses in this neighborhood had beige trims, but apparently my ramp's color was a problem. I wrote another letter, a bit firmer this time, reminding her that I wasn't just a mom with a ramp, I was the regional disability rights officer for the state. I enforced ADA compliance across housing, education, and infrastructure. I wasn't trying to threaten her. I was just making it clear she had picked the wrong fight. Then came the anonymous complaints. Someone, probably the same guy who hadn't spoken to us since we moved, and filed a noise complaint about the ramp being built. Another said it was a safety hazard to children playing nearby. One even claimed it would lower property values. They weren't real complaints. They were just a way to create a paper trail to justify what Karen was about to do next. What did Karen do? She didn't hold a meeting. She didn't consult the board. She hired someone to come before dawn and rip out a federally protected accessibility fixture like it was just another piece of unwanted garden furniture. She didn't think anyone would care that she did it. She didn't think anyone would push back. But she was wrong. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make threats. What I was going to do was play it smart. I called my assistant at the office and had her forward me the emergency violation response forms. I wasn't going to let this slide. I documented everything: the removal, the damage, the footage Cheryl had sent me, and filed a formal ADA complaint with the state. I also initiated a re-VYEW of the HOA's bylaws, contacting a legal advocacy group for community training. I wanted Karen to think she'd won. I wanted her to think she'd gotten away with it. 2 days later, I saw her strutting past our house, smirking. She waved her phone at me, probably bragging about how she'd handled the ramp situation. I smiled back, not because I was pretending, but because I had a little surprise for her. The Department of Housing and Urban Development had just assigned her file to one of my colleagues in compliance. We installed a temporary ramp the same day. My contractor came out and reinforced it with steel anchors, making sure it wouldn't go anywhere. Then I ordered a new ramp, made from powder-coated aluminum, in the exact same shade of beige, just to twist the irony. I even had it engraved. Access is a right. By now, Karen had revealed her true nature to everyone. People started talking. And once I filed the lawsuit and had her violations re-VYEU'd federally, Karen wasn't just a neighborhood nuisance, she was a liability for everyone tied to her. The next morning, I noticed something different. The usual sounds of Oak Creek Valley, the hum of sprinklers and lawnmowers felt different, like the calm before a storm. I sat at the kitchen table, Eli drawing superheroes at the counter, when my phone buzzed. It was Tina, my assistant. The ADA compliance department had officially accepted the investigation request. The site visit was scheduled for later that week. Karen didn't know it yet, but the walls were closing in. Around lunchtime, I saw Karen across the street, clipboard in hand, talking animatedly to two other board members. She pointed at our ramp, arms flailing. Then she did something truly absurd. She walked over to our mailbox, bent down, and slipped another violation notice inside. I couldn't help but laugh. This time, it was about the mulch around the base of the ramp. Apparently, it didn't match the HOA-approved ground cover. But things escalated quickly. That evening, my neighbor Beth knocked on the door holding a flyer she'd found taped to her trash bin. It was a petition titled, "Beautify the Block," with a paragraph about how wheelchair ramps like ours were a violation of property aesthetics and could lead to declining home values. Karen had started canvassing, trying to stir up support for removing our ramp. What she didn't realize was that this wasn't just our fight anymore. Beth had a sister in a wheelchair, and another neighbor, Vince, had helped install a ramp for his father. People were fed up with Karen's rigid interpretation of the rules. What started as a small gathering at our house turned into something bigger, a rally of sorts. People shared their stories. One man had been fined because his wife used a stairlift. Another woman had to remove her sensory-friendly wind chimes. This wasn't just about a ramp anymore. It was about Karen using the HOA to enforce her idea of a perfect neighborhood, and the people who were tired of being excluded. We started a counter-petition. Dozens of neighbors signed in support, demanding that the HOA re-VYEU all its accessibility policies. We were ready to take the fight public. The next day, Karen saw the signs. Not protest signs, just firm messages placed in multiple yards. Accessibility is a right, not a violation. One was even hand-painted with flowers. Her reaction? Complete disbelief. She went door to door trying to argue with people, but most shut their doors or told her they were done with the rulebook politics. The pressure on Karen was mounting. The HOA inspector who had approved our ramp came by for a surprise inspection and, in a twist of fate, uncovered violations on Karen's property. She had built an illegal pergola, and her solar lights violated community guidelines. By the end of the week, Karen's position was crumbling. The board held an emergency meeting, and one member, Curtis, asked why she hadn't consulted the board before removing our ramp. She didn't have an answer. The motion to suspend her passed swiftly. Karen stormed out, but not in defiatno. She left in disbelief. She truly thought she was untouchable. She'd messed with the wrong family, the wrong child. I stood on our ramp that evening, watching the sunset with Eli. He asked, "So, did we win?" I smiled. "We haven't won yet, but we've made it to the part where they finally play fair." And for the first time, I knew we were on the right side of this fight. And it felt good. What do you think? Was it the right move to fight for our ramp? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This story's not over yet.